Apologies, folks. Fucking OBS decided to do the whole sneak revert to default and not tell me once again.
Oh, like changed out of your scene or something?
Yeah.
Uh, Crap.
So it got nothing.
Yep. But once more with feeling. Welcome to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra. With me, of course, is good brothers Joe and Sizer.
Just a passing through fortune teller.
Ahoy and vast.
And with this particular entry, this is largely Joe's fault, and to a
It's
certain
all
extent
my fault.
mine. He asked for Weird West because I told him pick a genre and I'll grab something that in my library that fits that genre and we'll go with that. And this is what he ended up picking. And oh, well, he didn't pick Far West specifically. That was on me, but he wanted to do a Weird West game. I felt that with something like Far West, I could fulfill that particular request while also skewing it to do something unique. And Far West is certainly unique. It is a mashup of Wuxia and the Wild West.
Mm.
And it has been described as an let me get the paragraph. Oh. Because this is they describe it as a fantasy world that's the Gunslinger meets Storm Riders meets Deadwood meets Afro Samurai meets the Wild Wild West meets Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon meets Django meets Briscoe County meets House of Flying Daggers.
Okay.
I mean, that works fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, never hurts to have a lot of influences, right?
Yeah.
Also, I gotta say, I love the character of all of the art in this book so far.
Mm-hmm. It's almost a kind of rotoscope like setup.
Yeah.
You know, taking
Yeah,
real
it does.
actors
It does give that.
and painting over. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, this is something that took a long time to finally come out, and is going to be the first time that I've covered the D6 system here since I covered the quick start for Planet of the Apes, which I think that was with Monarch. And let me check. No, that was with Zan. That was with Zan back in 2024.
Oh, it's been a while.
Mm-hmm. But we open up with a nice little piece going, I look to the north. The cold wind smells of pine and iron. I look to the east. The cool wind smells of jasmine and brine. I look to the south. The warm wind smells of citrus and loam. I will not look to the west, for the wind is full of dust, and it smells of blood and glory. And we do have bookmarks, and we do have an index. And
Ha ha ha.
while this is using D6, I know some may go, why is there an appendix for the Open Gaming License? Well, some years ago, the D6 system was made into an open license game through the Open D6 protocol, and you saw a bunch of games come out of that. But you know, we do have a. I'm not gonna get on them for not having hyperlinked table of contents because that was still a new thing. And when it comes to how long it took, the crowdfund for Far West was in 2011. This came out in 2023.
Oh wow. So 12,
But
12 years. Yeah.
12 years of not giving up.
Never give up.
Which I can appreciate. But I do like the image we have here of essentially a cowboy with a Chinese longsword on his back.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have the forward. And since this is going to be setting the tone, I do think I will read that. And God damn it, A.
Hi, A.
You could say that they never gave it up, never let it down. They may have run around but didn't desert it. God fucking damn it. It opens with, they say that the Empire has stood for 1,000 years, and that might even be true. Who can say? Regardless, it sits, powerful and majestic, spread along the coast of the Eastern Ocean. Port cities filled with thronging multitudes, the seats of great mercantile chartered houses, the centers of culture and art and industry and imperial power. Over the years, the Empire grew. The push west, more and more territory under the imperial flag. Each of these territories had their own rulers, of course, to handle day-to-day affairs. 100 princes, barons, presidents, mandarins, and ministers, all with their own petty thrones, yet bending the knee to the emperor, each designated as governor of an imperial territory. Collectively, these outer territories, nearly but not quite independent, were referred to as the periphery. No, Battletech fans, sit down. I'm not getting to you yet. That's later. On occasion, an imperial governor would decide that his own title, king, exarch, prince, emir, baron, what have you, was his true calling, and the territory would rise up and declare itself truly independent of the empire, a sovereign nation. Inevitably, the empire would crush these rebellions underfoot and install a new governor, because no territory was ever lacking in an opposition group hungry for power. And so it went until the Succession Wars. Once again, Battletech fans, sit down, I'll get to you later. It started when one of the larger territories rebelled and broke away, and, as had happened so many times before, was brought under the focus of imperial attention. Yet this time, several other territories saw this as their opportunity. While the Empire was busy putting down the rebellion in the first territory, it was reasoned that its forces would be unable to respond quickly enough to other revolutions. A cascade of rebellions began, as more and more of the periphery followed the lead of these first acts. Before long, the Empire was faced with nearly the entire periphery in rebellion, with alliances forming between various breakaway states for mutual defense and aid. The Imperial forces had the power, industrial might, training, technology, etc. The periphery had the numbers, however. There was simply too wide a front to effectively fight. Too many territories to occupy and pacify. Too much ground to cover. Yes, it might have worked. Might have, of course, if not for human nature, and specifically the nature of power to corrupt. For as easily as alliances are made, they are also broken. Treachery has its own rewards, after all. The periphery was unable to maintain a unified defense against the Empire. Issues of self-interest trampled reason. Alliances crumbled as individual territories made opportunistic decisions. And old bad blood boiled over, arguments over resources and the spoils of war. The Empire moved methodically, taking its time, concentrating its efforts on territories that had been isolated from others through their own actions, the actions of their neighbors, or in many cases, through the actions of Imperial spies who sowed mistrust throughout the periphery. One by one, they crushed each repelling territory, before turning their attentions to the next. It was a long war and hard fought. The August Throne was in no hurry. The Succession Wars ended with the inevitability of a coming winter, though not perhaps as the Empire wished. A new world was created, peace and prosperity for all. For those who had lost everything in the war, there was no place for them. They headed west to start new lives. For warriors, even many of those who had fought on the winning side, there was no place for them either. Steeped in too much blood, and too possessed of a skill and trade that was no longer desired, they also headed west. Beyond the periphery lies the frontier, where settlements began to blossom. Yet even here the flower of civilization asked too much tending. And so men and women pushed further west, beyond the last horizon, into the far west. And the more that I think about it, there is one TV show that I watched a few years ago that would make a very good visual representation of this, at least for its first couple seasons. Do either of you remember the show Into the Badlands?
Yeah, I thought that's what you might be thinking of. I did not. I never saw it, but I like that is the aesthetic that I get from like Osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
From you get it.
Now, I say the first two seasons because the third one felt a little bit. It felt like it leaned a little bit too much into a more science fiction-y approach with the Pilgrim and his particular cult, as well as over-explaining a certain power that was used throughout the series that didn't really need an explanation.
Mm.
Then, of course, afterwards, the show ends on a cliffhanger. I mean, it was a decent show, but the problem was it was on AMC.
Oh.
Around the same time as The Walking Dead.
Oh, that'll hurt you.
Now, it wasn't the same time slot, obviously, but it's a case of the only reason people were watching AMC was The Walking Dead.
Yeah, was that the show that was like on after The Walking Dead?
I don't remember, and I ended up catching the show after it had long since finished.
Yeah.
Which show again?
Into the Badlands. I had heard that it was on before The Walking Dead, but I don't think it was a case of it getting screwed over by time slot. I think it was a case of this was peak Walking Dead mania.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more that one thing is very much getting the lion's share. Because remember, this was around the time you had The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, which itself is a zombie these days, and and post-show podcast, because that was a thing in the 2010s. Like,
and The Walking Dead shambles on even today with a few extra shows. Don't they have the Carol and Daryl show?
Yeah.
Too?
The sweet irony is they put so many eggs in that basket that when things started to go south, they didn't have a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
I still occasionally see people use Walking Dead cards for Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah, because I feel like the only real success of the Universes Beyond project for Magic the Gathering is going to be Final Fantasy, and I think that's largely because Square had them on a tight leash.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, there have been others, but it feels like there wasn't that concentrated effort to get the feel of the universe that was being adapted.
Not even gonna touch the Transformers set.
Oh. Or the 40K one for that matter. I may be a little bit biased because Magnus the Red was fucking busted.
True that.
But after that, they go into a bit of the origins of the project. One of the early influences was elements of the Dark Tower, and this idea of doing fantasy, but an amalgam of the American myth instead. uh, based on a quote that was from Stephen King that was in one of the recent printings of The Dark Tower at the time. It said, I saw a film directed by Sergio Leone. It was called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But before the film was even half over, I realized that I wanted to write was a novel that contained Tolkien's sense of quest and magic, but set against Leone's almost absurdly majestic Western backdrop.
I mean, oh, yeah.
And that planted the seed for the idea. And then going a bit further in. And then we get to the introduction proper. Going into what it is, as well as what they're calling the D6 Plus system. Which is basically their variant of the D6 system that was pioneered by West End Games. And I don't know how true this is, but there has been a rumor going around for years that LucasArts approached TSR about doing a Star Wars RPG. And TSR turned them down. Then a few years later, they end up going to West End Games. And
You know, I think I may have actually seen that book. Well, it's an old one, that's for sure. That was before Empire, right? Came out.
D6 Star Wars, its first edition, I think came out in the late 80s. So I think,
okay.
I think by that point, I think it was 88. I'm gonna double check in a moment, but I'm pretty sure that by the time it came out, the film trilogy was done, and they were looking at expanding in through other mediums. This was because they were starting to kick off the expanded universe with the books, and Lucas had formed LucasArts specifically for this kind of thing, as well as exploring video games for his own projects. Which definitely makes sense because Lucas was at the end of the day as much of a tech nerd as he was a director.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, he wrote a technical manual for a camera. But so
Sounds like it.
okay, so the first edition of Star Wars the role-playing game, also known as Star Wars D6, came out in 87.
Okay.
And there are places
I
to
was
get
only
all of
5 years old at the time.
there are places to get the book. The version that I have of it is the revised and expanded book, which came out in 94. But let me see what year Return of the Jedi came out.
83. Just popped into that one.
Yeah.
I was 1.
But the D6 system is significantly influential. Being a very early adopter of more narrativist mechanics, as well as it was first being used in the Ghostbusters RPG, starting with a frightfully cheerful game and then going into Ghostbusters International. Also, hey there, Flame. How you doing? Hope you're doing better than you. Hope you're doing better. I didn't play a frightfully cheerful game, but it is pretty simple. And Ghostbusters International I did play, which is a bit more robust of a setup, for lack of a better term. And I think had a better setup. The idea of the PCs you're essentially a franchise of the Ghostbusters, i.e. you're setting up a new branch in some place outside of Manhattan.
Yeah, that's a good way to go about it.
I think the Men in Black RPG did something similar.
That reeks of Venkman. He definitely had that idea.
You can.
That way he could get some of the proceeds and not have to do the work that way, right? If you franchise it.
Possibly. I think in universe the explanation was the amount of reports they were getting on spiritual events was too big for one office. So they start expanding. But when it comes to the D6 plus system, it is an attribute plus skill approach. Each attribute and each skill will have a die code associated with it. Sometimes you might have a static bonus of what's called pips, which are usually +1 or +2. So if you have a strength of 3d plus 1, you're rolling 3 die, adding the result, and then adding 1. Now, that would be pretty standard, but one of the die that you roll is designated as the wild die. It is advised to have the wild die be a different color than the others. If this die comes up as a 2 through 5, you add it normally. If it comes up as a 6, that's a crit. You add the 6 to your other die, and then you roll the die again. As long as you keep... And it's basically an exploding die. On the other hand, if the wild die rolls a 1, it's a critical failure.
Okay.
Amusing. I really like that, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, of course, then they go into the role of the narrator, which self-explanatory what that is. The protagonists, as well as, and then the attributes. The attributes you have are reflexes, strength, wits, toughness, presence, knack, and kung fu. And we will get into hero creation a bit later. Your character will also have backgrounds and occupations. That is another thing that we're going to get into. Backgrounds are where you came from. Occupations give bonuses to certain attributes and skills. Actually, both of them do. Skills are exactly what you think they are. There's a lot of skills. A lot of them are going to be tied to a particular attribute. But they generate a die pool the way attributes do. And we have spirit, which is meant to be the inner power of the character. It is used as the fuel for kung fu. Can also be used to reduce damage from attacks, and as a currency in the compelling of aspects. Yeah, they're doing the aspect system from Fate in this. And we will get into how you determine spirit, as well as how it's used later on in this series. Now, aspects are things like relationships, beliefs, descriptors, catchphrases, and so on. If you've seen a Fate game, you've seen aspects. And of course, rank. Your rank determines your total spirit, the types of kung fu you have access to, and other matters. The ranks are Novice, Initiate, Master, and Legend. If you're not a heroic character, you are considered unrank. You are also affiliated with a clan, a sect that is organized along political, philosophical, or vocational lines. Some clans are secret, some are open. All have certain obligations you're expected to follow. And some of them might have secret forms of kung fu. On the other hand, you may have...
establish a bigger clan again.
On the other hand, you may have no clan allegiance or serve imperial interests. But then it goes into gameplay, specifically die rolls at first, which we had already talked about that. you're essentially rolling a set of dice, adding any pips, and you're checking that against a static target number. Now, it can be modified through situations, equipment, special attributes, and so on. It can also be modified by spirit and destiny points. You can spend a point of spirit to add an additional wild die to a roll. The narrator will determine the maximum amount you can spend this way. Usually it's 2, but the narrator can allow up to 5 points if need be. Though you have to decide if you're spending that spirit before you roll. Another method to spend spirit is tagging an aspect, which will add 2 wild dice to the roll. However, the 2 versions of spirit spend that we've talked about here, you can't stack those. You can either tag an aspect, or you can spend spirit directly. And keep in mind, it just adds a wild die. So the more wild die does mean you have a bigger opportunity for rolling a 6, but also more opportunity for rolling a 1. And remember, you only need one of them to roll a 1 for it to be a botch. So adding extra wild die is not exactly a win button.
It'd be a bit of high risk, high reward, though.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the other hand, you have destiny points, which represent your fate. You can only use these if it's a matter of life and death or somehow related to your overall purpose. In order to spend it, you'd first have to spend spirit and tag an aspect that relates to the matter at hand. Destiny cannot be spent unless an aspect is in play. Spending the destiny point will double the number of dice you get for that roll. However, you only roll a single wild die. And furthermore, anything that's not part of the character is not doubled. On the other hand, destiny points is something you're not going to get all that often.
So, situation where you want to save them for when you really, really need them.
Exactly.
Yep. And hello there, Riona. Welcome to the party as we go into the far west. But after that, there is Yas. Yas is hard to simplify. They do call it luck, but it is a thing it's also a reference to the idols that are used for ancestor worship across East Asia, as well as papers that are burned during certain ancestor worship or folk rituals. With what's known as Yas paper. But having it be simplified as luck is close enough. It's one of those things where there isn't a direct 1-to-1. But in Far West, it is an optional modifier on the outcome of a roll rather than the roll itself. A Yas result is any roll of doubles. If you roll doubles, it means the universe has taken notice. It could be good Yas for high numbers or bad Yas for low numbers. And this kind of effect can occur whether or not you succeeded or failed on the roll.
Okay, so it sounds like kind of I was going to say, it sounds like a kind of a complication mechanic.
But.
Yeah.
I'm surprised double 4s are like not immediately bad luck. Considering.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing I'd expect from Marvel Multiverse and the weird ass 616 setup that they have for their dice.
Do we
But
have to talk about that?
no. But then they go into tagging and compelling aspects. Uh, Aspects you do not have a value. You either have that as something as an aspect or you don't. Uh, and if you tag an aspect, that means you are activating that aspect for your own actions, and lets you spend spirit to get a bonus on the roll, as we already mentioned. Though you can use it to do some cooperative actions. For example, if you have spirit remaining but another hero doesn't, you can tag an aspect to you to give your spirit to someone else and give them the bonus. On the other hand, the narrator can compel an aspect, choosing an aspect and offering you an amount of spirit if you accept the consequences for compelling it. Now, you can refuse a compel, but it does cost spirit to do so. And the narrator can do a one-time up the ante of a compel, offering a higher award, which would cost you more if you refuse it. Like I said, this aspect thing is straight out of Fate. I do wonder if it's going to have the same problem that I have with aspects in Fate, where there isn't a guideline as far as what a good or bad aspect might be. Like if an aspect is a little too broad.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it comes to difficulty, they do have difficulty ranges instead of hard difficulties for each level. But it is a target number, essentially.
Yep. Up through fives. Up by fives, rather.
Mm-hmm. A very easy one might be 1 to 5 versus a heroic tier 1 might be 26 to 30 or more.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if you roll higher than the difficulty, you succeed. If not, you fail. Though in fact, a good amount of rolls are going to be contested, especially when it comes to things like combat. Which initiative is based on wits, though it can be modified with skills and kung fu. And the two types of combat. First is ranged, and second is, of course, melee.
Mm-hmm.
The difficulty to hit a target in ranged combat is based on the range modified by cover or the target's actions. And in close combat, it is the difficulty or method of the weapon used, modified by target's actions. The target's actions can include block, dodge, or parry, but some kung fu styles may offer additional defensive options. Obviously, if the target is hit, then they take damage based on the attack's damage rating. After rolling the damage, the target rolls a toughness roll, modified by armor or other forms of protection. If that's higher, no damage occurs. If the damage roll is higher, then the target gets a wound. You can burn points of spirit to reduce damage, but you don't have an unlimited amount of spirit. The reason I specify wound in this is because this is not doing a HP setup.
Ah, I understand. We have blocks again. No, I'm kidding. Rows and columns, everyone. I do have to say, I love this image of the previous page of like the old dude just shattering someone's sword.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, since we are dealing with the Weird West, we have as much Weird West tech as we do Kung Fu. Which I suppose I kind of lampshaded when I brought up Wild Wild West earlier.
Yeah, it seems like they got something called Cog Science, which maybe their steampunk stand-in.
Yep.
We're going way to the Wild Wild West.
But after that, they go into some of the important terms. And a lot of them we will be covering in detail, and some of them we already did cover. But
Seems like an odd place to put it. You know, more like you'd want like your glossary at the back or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
This is
With appropriate page numbers too.
This is very much a habit of early 2000s.
Ah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Especially post White Wolf games.
Oh, gee, I never knew what a character was. Goodness, it's a good thing they told me.
And there is something amusing about the image we have here of a cowboy with iron rings on only one arm, and the kind of charm that you would see on somebody's window on the rifle that they have in front of a shop called Honest Woos. I'm pretty sure he's not all that honest.
Isn't that more like the kind of thing you'd see on the end of someone's pommel for their sword?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but it's too long. Like
True.
The red part on the end of it, if it was just that, I could see that kind of thing.
No. Too Long Shop is down the road a bit. I'm sorry, that was bad.
At least you admit it.
I do admit it, yes. All I know is there's one joke that I will not make, at least until the very end, because I've heard it far too much when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But then we have technically Chapter 3, the heroes wrought from iron, villains born of fire.
I like that.
Basically, this is where we're getting into character creation. And this is done in 9 steps. Rank, attributes, background, occupation, skills, spirit and aspects, edges and flaws, allegiance, and final steps. At the back end of the book, there are a few character templates, which is a very common thing with D6 games. So if you want something quickly, you can slap one of those in. And when it comes to the details on skills, as well as edges and flaws, some of that we'll get to later. We won't be getting into those tonight. We will be getting into skills a little bit into this episode, though. But first off is rank. I already mentioned the different types of ranks. Novices are a step above the ordinary. The hero at the beginning of their story. Then we have initiate. Most heroes will be of this rank. If you want larger-than-life heroes who are still facing challenges, this is where you go. This is the default play level. Master. this is the more experienced end, and then legend, literally the stuff of legends. And once a rank has been decided, then that is going to determine the budget for attributes, skills, the forms of kung fu they have, as well as their spirit. Like, for example, a novice has 18 die worth of attributes to spend. Only no attribute can go higher than 5. And as mentioned, the attributes that are available are reflexes, strength, wits, toughness, presence, knack, and kung fu. Knack is your tool use ability. Kung fu is exactly what it sounds like. The forms part is used to determine how the kung fu forms that you can have at no spirit cost. Getting additional forms costs spirit to purchase. But then we have, since Initiate is meant to be the default rank, you would have 23 points of 23 die of attributes to spend. No attribute can go above 5. But you do get 3 kung fu forms for free and a spirit multiplier of 2. Now, when it comes to backgrounds, this is basically where you hail from. You could either roll it randomly or pick one. Each background will provide an attribute and skill bonus to specific attributes and skills, obviously. So the ones we have are back east. So you're from the Empire. Back east, the periphery. You grew up on the western edges of the Empire, the quasi-independent border territories that play fealty to the August Throne. I'd say the periphery would be akin to like the Outer Rim territories. Especially
Sounds about right.
Where
I'm thinking if we're looking at like real history, would that be like maybe Manchuria or Mongolia as in relation to the Chinese Empire?
You know, the more I hear about this setting, the more it feels like the pre spacefaring days of Firefly.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Because they were a mostly China-dominated society as well.
With the Alliance, it was built on the idea that the big pushers to space exploration were the U.S. and China, which is why you have this fusion. Though not Fire Emblem, Firefly is still doing that cultural mishmashing. Because you see people casually switching between English and Chinese. You see plenty of people, but even with that, you see mishmashing in outfits, technology levels, cultures, and so on.
And also the sure writers wanted to be able to swear, use them swear words on TV without anybody noticing. So just put them in Chinese.
Yeah. The only reason I can't be too harsh on that is because I've done this. I did that in one of my classes to curse up a storm with nobody noticing. Because a friend of mine was teaching me French at the time.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Of course, if I studied German, I could probably just do a bunch of curse words, but still get in trouble because you've probably seen the meme of Cthulhu casually speaking in German.
No, I haven't seen that one actually.
Uh, but anyway, the next background we have is the Eagle's Claws, the largest mountain range in the world. Maybe Semberbane or Restless City, or maybe a member of the mountain clans. So you come from the mountains. Then the high plains. You hail from the rolling, semi-arid prairie that forms the bulk of the more heavily settled portions of the far west. Then the Sea of Spears. North of the Eagle's Claws lies the coniferous forest you call home. Then the Thousand Mesas. You're from an arid region filled with flat-topped hills from which it draws its name. Home to a culture of early settlers known as the Castellan. After the language which they still speak, distinct from the imperial tongue. Or the Shadow of the Claws. You call the sparsely populated lands west of the Quicksilver River home. Part of a farm family that's been there for generations, or perhaps a resident of the famed city of engineers, Albuldain. Or the Shining Mirror. You hail from one of the trade cities on the shore of what many Westerners simply call the sea, or one of the countless small settlements near or even on the water. And the Rolling Steppes, an endless grassland that stretches beyond the horizon. If the Rolling Steppes have an end, no one has returned with tales of it. Or the Dreaming Desert. You were born in one of the harshest environments in the far west, the searing desert sands of the southwest. Or a nomad. You were born on the road, and there you stayed, wandering over many paths that wend over the far west. And I do like that if you aren't sure which one to go with, you can do a 2d6 roll to determine it. And in a lot of cases, the attribute bonus is a +1 to one of two potential attributes, and the skill bonus is a mixture of +1 to 2 skills and a +2 to 1 skill. And these +1 and +2s, these are pips. These aren't additional dice. Which does mean that they're kind of an exception to the die cap. But occupations work in a similar manner, but instead you get three pips between which equals 1 die between the available skills for that occupation. Or you can put them all in 1 skill and increase the skill die for that by 1. Or, 2 in 1 skill and 1 in another. And the occupations we have are academic, agent, artisan, artist, beggar, clergy, courtier, criminal, doctor, engineer, entertainer, farmer, fisherman, gambler, guard, guide, hired gun, hunter, idle rich, investigator, laborer, law enforcement, Lotus Girl / Willing Lad. So if we're gonna bring up Firefly, companions.
Yep.
Mariner, merchant, miner, military, politician, rancher, servant, stable hand, teacher, woodsman, and wrangler. And I see what it's going for, but there's a small part of me that wishes there was some occupation tied knack to each of them.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there. Like a little extra ability, that a thing you can do in like combat, or just like through your skills that you couldn't normally do under any other way.
Like, consider consider not to put myself on a pedestal once again, but consider the some of the optional racial features I have in Legend Edition. Like for example, the family crest thing for Elzen, which is giving you an affiliation interest, and that can have its uses. You know, stuff like that, or even things like some of the background benefits you see in certain games that are tied to specific occupations.
Yeah.
Like, Joe, I suppose an example would be the whole BOP thing, where, like, if you have, like, you add Knight, which gives you your coat of arms and gets you some degree of pull when it comes to requesting favors of people.
Yep.
But on the other hand, you do have to still act like a knight.
But I don't wanna.
You took the oaths.
Fine.
But then we go into skills, more specific applications of an attribute. And of course, skills can have specializations, which are even more direct. You can spend 1 die of your starting skill die to get 3 specialization dice, and of course, 1 specialization die still equals 3 pips. That's kind of the rule. The only static modifiers are going to be 1s or 2s. If it would be a +3, it's bumped up to an extra die. And this is the standard attribute plus skill approach, where the skill is added on to the attribute roll. Now, if that would mean the static bonus would go over 3, like in the example with demolitions here, that just means you're rolling an extra die. No matter what, when you're doing it, it is +1, +2, die, repeat.
Cool.
Now, the somewhat exception to the rule is Kung Fu skills. These do not have any starting die. They don't have an associated attribute. What you do is you take a attribute die code and distribute it among the 4 skills, as if they were skill die to be spent. You do not have a die code in all the skills, but it's essentially Kung Fu is split between 4 sub-attributes. And in addition to that, you cannot spend skill dice on improving Kung Fu skills. The only way you can improve them is by acquisition of styles. Although I do like the name of the chapter for those. Iron Palms and No Shadow Kicks.
And I do notice that 3 of those Kung Fu skills are just the same as they are in Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blades.
Mm-hmm. But... And... Well, a lot... You're going to see those commonalities, especially when you're digging into wuxia games. But...
Mm-hmm.
For reflexes, we have athletics, contortion, you don't see that often, dodge, gunplay, melee combat, riding, sleight of hand, stealth, and throwing. For strength, we see brawling, climbing, jumping, lifting, running, and swimming. For wits, which looks like wits is going to be the god entry as far as what it can be used for. We have artist, bureaucracy, business, gambling, hide, investigation, medicine, navigation, scholar, search, streetwise survival, and tracking. Yeah, Wits has the most skills of any of the attributes.
Oh yeah.
Uh, see,
Which is not a dump stat.
Mhm. Toughness has resistance and stamina. Presence has animal handling, bargain, charm, command, con, disguise, intimidation, persuasion, and willpower. Knack has artillery, cog science, craft, demolitions, driving, lockpicking, repair, and traps. And Kung Fu has external, gateways, internal, and lightness. As somebody who's played through my fair share of D6 games, what they're doing with Kung Fu here isn't far removed from what they did with the Force in the Star Wars RPG. It's just that there's 4 skills here instead of 3. With the way it worked was there were 3 subcategories of Force use in Star Wars D6: Control, Sense, and Alter. This would later be repackaged as psychic powers in D6 Space, but D6 Space was basically Star Wars D6 with the Star Wars filed off. It was part of the trilogy re-release of D6 that came out in 2004. There were three books, each of them covering a different genre. Adventure, which a lot of people think Adventure was when they hear the name they think, oh, that's probably the fantasy book. No, that's fantasy. Adventure is pulp. And Space, which is space opera. And all 3 of the PDFs for those books are completely free. They have been for over a decade. But it will be interesting to... I'm not going to try and imply that Kung Fu skills are them repackaging Force powers, because I'm pretty sure that's not happening. There's just some similar overlap. But... And they go into Spirit and Aspects. We've covered what Spirit is, as well as what Aspects are. So, I do like that they bring up... Some call it inner power, some call it life energy, some call it chi, some call it the Force. So, Spirit is measured in permanent and temporary spirit. Your permanent spirit is your maximum spirit rating. This is determined at character creation. It can be reduced. For example, learning Kung Fu styles requires permanent spirit points to buy a style. But it can also be increased when you increase your rank. Temporary spirit is gained and lost during an adventure. You lose it by spending it on die rolls, by tagging in compelling aspects, by reducing damage, etc. But you also get it back regularly through story awards, overcoming challenges, dealing with setbacks, and so on. Temporary can even go past the maximum if you're playing things right. But at the end of the adventure, it will go back to where it was. So you can't, much like, say, overhealing. Now, the formula for determining permanent spirit is based on your attribute die, ignoring all pips. You take your Kung Fu die, add the die from the lower of reflexes or wits, the lower of strength or toughness, and the lower of presence or knack. Then you take that total and multiply it based on your rank. So if you're playing Initiate, you're taking that total and doubling it.
Yep.
With aspects, we've talked about what they are and what tagging and compelling is. And when it comes to starting aspects, you have 5 of them at the start. One aspect during the background, one during occupation, one related to your highest attribute, one related to your lowest attribute, and one more based on your rank. Though at higher ranks, you pick additional ones. which you can also gain aspects as play progresses. And so they do give a bit of an example of aspects through the Dust Road virtues, and how each of the virtues kind of has potential aspects that are thematically linked. For example, altruism could be things like the Ranger's Code, She's in Trouble, or Mercenary. Same thing with justice, with individualism, with loyalty, with courage, truthfulness, disregard for wealth, and desire for glory. Obviously, you don't have to use all of them, and you can't use all of them. But that's at the very least, this is some level of guidance on aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd still like to know where you can kind of infer from this. This is certainly doing a better job with giving guidance on aspects than Fate.
Yeah, that's true.
Fate has a few paragraphs about what aspects are, but beyond that, it's doing that thing that annoys the hell out of me when it's done. Of, oh, we trust that the table is savvy enough to figure it out, or just play your characters and you'll figure it out. You know, that kind of swim damn it lack of guidance. Although part of me wishes there was like a random aspect table, just to add a bit of chaos. But after picking aspects, you pick your edges and flaws. This is optional, and it can add some additional quirks to your character. With edges, you purchase them with skill dice. And with flaws, you can get skill dice. I know this is a habit of D6, but there's a part of me that has always been kind of iffy about using the skill die resource for these kind of things. I would rather it be its own point pool.
Yeah, I think I agree. Best to have as much fun as possible with as many little things as you can get, or have it be like a zero route system where you can, if you take a certain number of points and edges, you have to balance it out with a certain number of flaws.
Yeah. Something that comes to mind immediately is the advantages and disadvantages part of Anima, where you start with 3 character points that you can spend on advantages. You can get more points through disadvantages, but you can't get more than 5. So you do have kind of a range that you're working with. But after that, you pick your allegiance. Basically, what clan you have association with, if any of them. If you do have membership in a clan, you do get their unique kung fu styles and some other benefits. We'll get to those later. You can choose one of the 8 major clans, create a minor clan of your own, or choose no allegiance. And after that, there's the final steps. First off, choosing your kung fu styles. You start with a number of them for free based on your rank. And since we're assuming Initiate is the baseline, you're starting with 3 kung fu styles for free. You also determine your starting weapons and equipment. Though it's talking about conferring with the narrator, so it's not like so there isn't a set cash in hand that you're spending.
Mm-hmm.
So some people will take advantage of that. That is the case of the GM should be very willing and able to put their foot down and say, "No, you are not getting a rocket launcher at the start."
But I want it.
Or I'd probably tell somebody, "Okay, you got a rocket launcher, but it's broken. It might be very powerful later on, but you don't. But you need to fix it first."
Yep.
You know, imagine someone saying, "Oh, I want a magic sword to start out with for my character," and you go, "All right, fine, you get it, but you're getting Excalibur." Oh, you think rocket launchers are? Should I?
Oh, listen, I'll take Excalibur as long as it turns things into frogs.
Oh. Then, of course, filling in the character sheet, picking a name. There are examples throughout the book as well as in the fiction that's on the website. But, and, you know, it says, you think rocket launchers are a martial art? If it works, it works, but in this case, it doesn't. If the rocket launcher doesn't work, it's just a giant pipe.
Yep.
Which could be useful as a club. And again, I had one person who wanted to put a fucking bayonet on a rocket launcher.
Sure, why not? Why not put 3
Might as
bayonets
well,
on
right?
the rocket launcher? Yeah.
On the other hand, he wanted to, with a mech game we were running, he wanted to do a mech version of the Ontos. You know, the tank that has 6 bazookas. And the one that the army balked at, and the Marine said, "I'll take your entire stock." Now, granted, the army had reasons for balking at it. It's because backblast.
Just a little, right?
Yeah.
And though the Ontos would later be nicknamed the Thing. It also had a 50 cal rifle for spotting purposes. In the side chat for you guys, I put in what a model of the Ontos.
Oh, let's look. Let's have a look here. Oh, where is that? Oh, I know where it is.
Oh Lord.
That's funny.
Yeah, imagine standing 20 feet from that.
That'd be
I
the
don't
wrong
think I want
distance
to.
to stand. Yeah.
And they were usually loaded with beehive rounds.
Mm.
So think of a flechette round on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, we do have a bit of a thing on the skills. And going into detail on every single skill would be a bit redundant, but the anatomy of a skill is obviously the name of the skill, the attribute it's associated with, how long it takes to use, the description, and any potential specializations.
Mm.
Some might have specific modifiers, like, say, animal handling having an attitude modifier. But when using it, it's a contested roll based on willpower. But a lot of the skills are exactly what you'd think they would be like. and several of them have their own little chart. But I want to spend a bit of time on cog science, since that is certainly unique to this setting.
Indeed.
Uh, so it says, while craft and repair represent the ability to create or fix devices and machinery, cog science specifically governs the invention, construction, and operation of steampunk mad science devices. The general rule of thumb is that if a piece of technology was historically available in the late 19th century in our world, that technology is covered by the more mundane skills mentioned above. If it is fantastic or an anachronism, it falls under cog science.
Mm. That
So-
looks like all we get on it for now. We'll probably have to go to its own chapter to get more.
Mm-hmm. And specializations would be particular types of devices.
Airships, baby. That's where I'm going to be focused.
Hmm. But I do like that we have demolitions in there, so I am perfectly within my rights to do the approach that I've done in the past of take shaped charges and use them as grenades, or tell the person who's trying to carefully pick the lock, "Oh, just let me handle it."
Oh,
You
Lord.
think, "Oh, I'm just gonna blow the door open." No, I'm gonna blow the wall next to the door open. A wall is just a door with a different kind of key.
And I'm just right now thinking about the scene in The Good and the Bad and the Ugly where the stranger and what's the name of the ugly dude? Well, whoever. They blow up the bridge, and it's
Mhm.
pretty awesome.
What's
Yep.
the name of the ugly dude is wild.
Well, we all know that one of them is the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Hmm.
Tico.
Oh, yeah.
I know you got Rihanna got it. I think it is Tico. Yeah. Angel Eyes is the bad,
Mhm.
and yeah.
There's one other film that I think is a nice visual touchstone for what Far West is doing, and I did bring it up when we were preparing this. Sukiyaki Western Django.
Yeah.
You've mentioned
Takashi
that
Miike.
before.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Would you believe me if I said that's one of Takashi Miike's saner movies?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would. I've seen friggin' what is it called? The one where the crazy lady.
Audition.
Audition. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that. A lot of
Yeah.
people think they know what they're getting into with Audition. You don't.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
They do not know.
I remember a friend of mine said he was looking for horror movie suggestions, and I brought up Audition and I brought up The Cube. And then he asked, "Okay, what are they about?" And I'm like, "I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I want you to go in blind."
Yeah, probably best.
Uh,
Or worst, I don't know. Depends on how strong your stomach is, I guess.
he's seen Sallow. I think he'll be fine on that front.
Oh yeah, he'll be fine then. Yeah.
Like if I ever do movie night, I guarantee you Sallow will never be on that, because I don't want to revisit that pain, and I don't want to inflict it on others.
I don't want to see it, honestly. I'm a huge horror guy, but there's a couple of movies I just don't want to see. That's one of them. Also, Cannibal Holocaust, but that's because of the animal issues that go into that. So,
Though I might do a dramatic reading on the Tor Ramsey apology for Children of the Living Dead. But with I do like that this was one of those cases where we have a dividing line between using a skill for regular kind of guns and ridiculous guns. Because
Oh, I think that's the High Plains Drifter poster. I'm gonna look this up. Sorry, please continue.
And we have investigation. We have jumping, lifting. Obviously melee combat, navigation, persuasion, riding. A lot of these skills are exactly what you think they would be. I think but there are some bad habits from the early 2000s that I do notice.
Oh.
One of them is dividing run, jump, climb, and swim into different skills.
Yeah.
This is one of those old habits from the 90s and 2000s. And nowadays, a lot of people will combine running and jumping into, say, athletics. Which, honestly, I'm perfectly fine with. A lot of what I'm seeing so far with Far West, even though it came out in 2011, if you told me this came out in 2006, I would believe you. Maybe not 2006, more like 2008. Point is, some of those old habits hadn't quite been filed off yet. And I know some will try and romanticize them, but having 4 different skills for different physical activities means 4 different sinks for points. Plus, it's always kind of odd with the idea that somebody who could run well somehow can't do a horizontal leap. It's one of those weird things. But in the skills section, we also have a bit on edges and flaws. Each one will have a positive or negative value, basically how many die you get or are spending for it. And those die can be used to buy edges, add more skills, or improve attributes. 1 attribute die is equal to 4 skill dice. And the edges we have are Adept, Alertness, Animal Ally, Authority, Blinding Speed, Cog Prosthesis, Deadly Aim, Dragonhide, Eagle-Eyed, Endurance, Famous, Fearless, Fortune of the Celestial Monkey, Hollow Leg, Intimidating Defense, Lightning Reload, No Time to Bleed, nice reference, Prodigy, Righteous Fury, Sense of Direction, Tough as Nails, Traceless Step, Two-Fisted, also nice reference, Unorthodox Fighter, Wealth, and Rasslin. Whereas flaws are Addlepated, Age, Contrary, Coward, Debt, Dependency, Enemy, Fanatic, Flawed Edge, Fortune's Foul, Greedy, Hindrance, Impaired, Infamous, In Harm's Way, Phobia, Secret, Sickly, Stranger, Thick as a Stump, Vengeful, Vulnerable, Wanted. But some of them are giving die bonuses and some of them are giving extra effects. I'm kind of iffy about having all of the edges and flaws in one big list.
I mean, you could at least separate them out into edges and flaws.
Yeah, I'd rather have a list of edges and a list of flaws. The whole one big list thing reminds me of feats in 3rd edition.
Never a good association that.
Hmm.
We can never escape. We can never escape.
Puts you right back in the middle of that labyrinth.
Hmm. But that being said, that'll cover what we have so far for Far West. So, what do you guys think of what we've got early on?
I like it.
Shows early promise, I would say. What more can we say to that? It seems like it's has enough skills and not specializations, and enough traits where you're going to be able to have martial arts that can do a lot of different things. I'm guessing you can probably have like gung fu type characters, as well as your mad scientists, and I don't know if you can do a Hadoken. Might be cool, but yeah, seems like there's potential there.
Hmm.
And by the way, I looked into that thing I thought was based on a movie poster, and I could not find the poster, but I know I've seen that particular pose somewhere. It's gonna
Which
bug
one?
me until I figure it out. It's on page 37
37.
of the guy with his back turned who's got the rifle.
It's
Um,
probably stock art.
Yeah,
hmm.
it may be, but I thought it was from. I've seen it before, and I think I've seen it in relation to a specific movie. All the ones I thought it was though are not it. So I'll come across it eventually. Then it'll click for me. So.
Oh yeah, I do like that through this rotoscoping, some of the pictures have a very let's grab it, let's grab whoever is in the room kind of thing going on,
Yeah.
which I will always find that charming. I found that kind of thing charming when years ago I covered Wild World Wrestling, which a lot of the photos in that were a case of grab somebody in the room and dress them up like an indie wrestler.
Yeah.
Some of them pulled it off. Others were very clearly chewing the scenery.
Nom nom nom, delicious scenery.
Hmm. But depending on who you ask, so do I. So I think the big thing that I take out of this is it is very much a D6 system. The plus part I'd say is where they brought in aspects. However, it has both the positives and negatives of the D6 system. D6 is a very simple, very straightforward game to go with, especially for people who prefer a more narrative approach, a more theater of the mind approach. On the other hand, there are some bad habits that I see here. One of the ones I will note, the character sheet doesn't have an entry for wounds that I could find. Now it could be that is the character sheet from the website, but and yeah, even the one in the core book doesn't have it. That's something we'll cover in detail when we get to combat. The whole thing with edges and flaws, that is going to create the potential for min-maxers, as those kind of things often do. I'm not going to get too harsh on it because that is just a habit of these kind of systems, and if you were coming up on the indie scene in the 2000s, you saw this kind of thing a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to the the whole attribute and skill setup, it is fairly standard, but it is going to have some weirdness, some oddities to it. I think the big thing is I'm not a fan of this idea of edges and flaws being something that you're spending skill dice for. I know why it's done. I understand why it's done. I'm just not a fan. I'm not a big fan of one resource being split multiple ways like that. I kind of brought this up some time ago when I said that when Fallout 4 came out, I didn't like the fact that advancements were spent on both developing attributes, the special acronym, as well as perks. When up until that point they were separate. But instead in Fallout 4 everything is basically a perk tree. Attributes, skills, and attributes and skills are folded into being trees of perks. And that did not sit with me. And when it comes to Spirit, I'm gonna withhold judgment on that, as well as how Kung Fu works. But it's a case of what is here is good. I do want to make that clear, but it is something that feels a little bit like a throwback. I know it came out in 2011, but if you said this was finished in 2009, I'd believe you. And we will. At the very least, I appreciate the background and occupation thing, but as I said before, I feel like occupation needs a little bit more than just skills. And
yeah.
The Joss thing is nice. I want to see how it's going to impact in terms of roles, because they do say higher Joss means a better result, but it was kind of vague in the opening chapter. But
yeah, we don't have much clue on that yet either. So,
so when we come back to this in a week, we will be delving into Kung Fu, allegiances, and equipment. So that should be an interesting bit to go into. Because the big question I have is Kung Fu going to be reskinning force powers? I don't think it will, but not thinking it will and it not doing that are not the same thing.
Very true. Very true.
So, and of course, tune in tomorrow as the gang continues the look at Night, which has been a very fascinating beast. And there'll be plenty more bits of insanity along the way. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Goodbye.